Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with sweet potato hummus. That's right. Like most people, I love hummus, especially homemade hummus. So you can just imagine my disappointment when I went to make it and realized I didn't have any garbanzo beans. And even though there's a grocery store literally 1 block from my house, what was even closer were the couple sweet potatoes sitting in my kitchen. So long story short, I used those instead, and I was absolutely blown away with the results. So with that incredible claim, let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing we're going to need is a couple cooked sweet potatoes. And exactly how these get cooked really doesn't matter. All right, we can boil them, we can bake them, we could even microwave them. Or if you're barbecuing, you could even roast these on the grill. But no matter what method you use, make sure these are cooked very, very soft. And then what we'll do as soon as those are cool enough to handle is we will handle them by scooping out the flesh into a bowl. And I know I just mentioned it, but let me say it again. Make sure these sweet potatoes get cooked very, very, very tender. All right, really, the only way to screw this up would be to undercook these. So please make sure they are extremely mashable. And then what we'll do once that's been accomplished is simply let them cool down to room temp before we move on to add the rest of the ingredients. The first and most important of which would be some tahini sauce, which is now sold in every big grocery store. And all tahini is a paste made from ground sesame seeds. In fact, when you buy it, the ingredient label should only say sesame seeds. And if it has a bunch of other ingredients in it, don't buy it. And then besides our tahini, we're also going to need some very finely minced or crushed garlic. And I went with about 2 cloves here, but I think anywhere between 1 clove and 4 cloves would be reasonable. And then we're going to want to season this up with some kosher salt, as well as some ground cumin, and a little touch of spicy chipotle pepper, which means we don't need cayenne. But we will add some anyway, just to stay in shape. And then we will finish up with a little bit of olive oil, as well as some freshly squeezed lemon juice. Or if you wanted, you could use lime instead, which is generally a very good pairing with sweet potatoes. So you decide. I mean, you are after all the Nostradamus of your hummus. And I predict no matter which one you use, this will be delicious. And then what we'll do once we have everything together is take a potato masher and smash this until it's as smooth as we want. Which reminds me, if you want this super, super smooth, you'll probably have to use a food processor or pass it through a fine mesh strainer. But personally, I'm just going to use the masher because I don't mind a little bit of a rough and rustic texture. So I went ahead and smashed and mashed mine until it looked like this, at which point we're technically done. But I'm going to do one more optional step that I really think improves the entire experience. And that would be to whip in a couple tablespoons of cold, fresh water, which I'm going to do in a couple additions so it doesn't splash all over. And what this little bit of water is going to do is significantly lighten the texture. And while we'll still get those same big flavors we're used to with hummus, the mouthfeel won't be quite as heavy as it would otherwise. So I really do love this trick no matter what I'm making my hummus with. And that's it. Once our hummus has been water whipped, we'll go ahead and clean up the sides of the bowl with a spatula. And of course, taste for seasoning. All right, you probably need a little more salt. But don't forget, this is at room temperature now. And we always want to do our final seasoning adjustments at the same temperature we're going to serve it, which for me at least is going to be chilled, which is hopefully how you're going to enjoy it too. Because any hummus is significantly tastier if you wrap it and pop it in the fridge for a few hours before you serve it. Okay, even overnight's good. So all those flavors have time to mingle, marry, and learn to love each other. So that's what I did. And then a few hours later, I pulled it out and served it up. After, of course, tasting and adjusting the seasonings, which I don't know if you've heard yet, but those are up to you. And then what we'll do after serving that up, as tradition dictates, is we'll go around with our spoon, making sort of a deep depression, not only to hold the olive oil we're about to drizzle on, but also to provide some visual contrast by producing some very provocative shadows. And by the way, if you're still looking for a band name, Provocative Shadows is not bad. And then once our top is landscaped, we'll drizzle over a generous amount of olive oil, as well as a few shakes of cayenne, or maybe even some chili flakes like Aleppo pepper would work. And then I finish up with some freshly chopped Italian parsley. And that's it, our alternative hummus using sweet potatoes is done. And we'll go ahead and transfer that next to some bread or crackers to eat it with. Or in my case, some homemade, crispy everything flatbread, which paired so well I'm going to have to show you how to make those. And even though this was not made with garbanzos, which are of course the main ingredient in hummus, it really was remarkably similar. which is initially surprising, but the more you think about it, it makes sense. Since the beans in hummus are by far the least flavorful ingredient, and the taste is really much more driven by the other ingredients, like the tahini and the garlic and the lemon. Plus, sweet potatoes have a very similar level of starchiness to the beans. In fact, thanks to the subtle sweetness from the potatoes, this tasted very, very similar to a roasted red pepper hummus. But anyway, to summarize, in hindsight, I was very happy I was out of garbanzo beans. And I would totally make this again on purpose, even if I had those around. Especially if I get to eat it on these homemade seeded flatbreads. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, whether you're looking for an alternative hummus just for a change of pace, or you're not able to eat garbanzo beans, or maybe you just have a long car trip planned after the meal. But regardless of the reason, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.